I was checking Robert Mitchell's morphine drip when the first family walked through the door. Wife, 2 adult children, grandchild in a stroller. They looked exactly like what you'd expect a grieving family to look like. Except Robert Mitchell already had a wife sitting in the chair next to his bed. And she looked just as surprised as I was. "Bobby?" the woman in the doorway said. "Oh my God, Bobby, we came as soon as we heard." The woman in the chair, Catherine Mitchell, according to the admission papers, stood up slowly. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman in the doorway went pale. I'm Margaret. Margaret Mitchell, Robert's wife." Catherine's face didn't change, just stared. "That's impossible," she said quietly. "I'm Robert's wife." The room went silent, except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. 92 beats per minute. Rising. I've been a nurse for 40 years, and I've seen a lot of family drama at deathbeds, but I'd never seen anything like this. If you've ever had family show up only when there's something to gain, leave a comment. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. It all started 6 days earlier. November 3rd, 2019, Sunday afternoon, 4:23 p.m. They admitted Robert Mitchell to St. Luke's Medical Center with stage 4 liver cancer and acute liver failure, hepatic encephalopathy. Jaundice so severe his skin looked almost orange under the fluorescent lights. Ascites that made his abdomen distended and painful to touch. Prognosis: 1 to 2 weeks, maybe less. He came up from the emergency room unconscious, slipping in and out of hepatic coma. His liver was essentially shutting down, toxins building in his bloodstream, poisoning his brain. 63 years old, previously healthy according to his medical history. No regular doctor. No previous hospitalizations except a hernia repair in 1998. The woman with him during admission was Catherine Mitchell, 58 years old, quiet, composed. The kind of quiet that comes from holding yourself together when everything inside is breaking apart. "How long have you been married?" I asked while setting up his IV. 34 years, she said. "We met in college, Georgia State. He was studying business. I was in education." "Any children?" 2. Michael is 32. Lives in Savannah. Emily is 28. She's in Charleston. They're both driving down tomorrow. She sat in the chair next to his bed, holding his hand, not saying anything, just holding his hand. Robert Mitchell was a big man, or had been before the cancer. 6'2". Probably weighed 220 in his healthier days. Now he was maybe 190, his frame looking skeletal under the hospital gown, his face gaunt and yellow. He had thick gray hair, a wedding ring on his left hand, a Rolex on his wrist that looked expensive. "What did your husband do for work?" I asked while checking his vitals. Blood pressure 98/62, heart rate 88, oxygen saturation 91%, temperature 100.2. "He owns a commercial real estate company," Catherine said. "Mitchell Properties. He started it 20 years ago, built it from nothing." She paused. "He works very hard, travels a lot. Atlanta, Macon, Columbus, sometimes Jacksonville." The way she said it, that pause, something about it didn't add up. Over the next 2 days, I watched Catherine sit with him. Monday morning, she arrived at 7 a.m., brought coffee in a thermos, a book she never opened. She just sat there, watching him breathe, watching the monitors, holding his hand when he was conscious enough to know she was there. Monday afternoon, Robert woke up briefly, confused, disoriented, the toxins in his brain making reality slip away. "Where am I?" he mumbled. "St. Luke's Hospital, honey, in Atlanta. You're sick, but I'm here." "Catherine?" "Yes, I'm here." He squeezed her hand, closed his eyes again. Tuesday morning, their children arrived. Michael Mitchell, tall like his father, looked like he'd been crying during the drive. He stood at the foot of the bed, staring at his father like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Emily Mitchell, shorter, dark hair like her mother. She sat on the opposite side of the bed from Catherine, holding Robert's other hand. "Has he been awake much?" Michael asked. "A few times," I said. "The hepatic encephalopathy makes him confused, but he knows you're here." "How long does he have?" "I've been asked that question 10,000 times in 40 years. It never gets easier to answer." "Days," I said gently. "Maybe a week. His liver is failing rapidly." Emily started crying quietly. That afternoon, I overheard them talking. "Did Dad say anything about his business?" Michael asked Catherine. "About what happens to Mitchell Properties." Catherine's face tightened. "Not yet. We need to talk about it, Mom. There are decisions that need to be made." "Not now, Michael." But I could see it in Michael's eyes. The calculation, the worry, the question that always comes when someone is dying and there's money involved. Tuesday evening, something strange happened. Robert woke up around 6 p.m., more lucid than he'd been. The medications were helping clear some of the toxins temporarily. "Catherine," he said, his voice rough and weak, "I'm here. I need to tell you something." She leaned closer. "What is it, honey?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something in his eyes. Guilt, deep, terrible guilt. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Sorry for what?" "For everything. For all of it. I'm so sorry." "Robert, you have nothing to be sorry for. You don't understand. You don't know. You don't know what I—" He stopped, coughed, winced in pain. "What you what?" Catherine asked, but he'd slipped back into unconsciousness. Catherine sat there for a long time, staring at his face. "What don't I know?" she whispered to no one. Wednesday morning, Catherine told me something that made me start paying closer attention. "Robert has always been private about his work," she said, while I was adjusting his oxygen. "He never talks about it much, never brings colleagues home. I've only been to his office maybe 3 times in 20 years. "That seems unusual," I said carefully. "I thought it was just his personality. He keeps work and home separate, you know." "But lately—" She trailed off. "Lately what?" "Lately I've been wondering if there was more to it." That afternoon, a man showed up. 55 years old, expensive suit, briefcase. He introduced himself as James Patterson, Robert's business partner. "How is he?" James asked. "Not well," Catherine said. "They're saying days." James nodded slowly, looked uncomfortable. "Listen, Catherine, I need to talk to you about some business matters. There are some things you should know. About the company, about Robert's arrangements." "What arrangements?" "Maybe we should talk in private." They went to the family waiting room. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw Catherine's face when she came back 15 minutes later. Pale, shaking. She sat down in the chair next to Robert's bed and stared at the wall. "Everything okay?" I asked gently. "I don't know," she said. "I honestly don't know anymore." Thursday morning, I found Catherine looking through Robert's wallet. She'd taken it from the personal belongings bag we'd stored when he was admitted. She was going through it methodically. Credit cards, driver's license, business cards. And then she found something. A photo, small, folded, tucked behind his driver's license. She unfolded it slowly. Her hand started shaking. "Mrs. Mitchell?" I said. "Are you all right?" She didn't answer, just stared at the photo. I couldn't see what it was, but I could see what it did to her. Then she found something else, a business card. But not for Mitchell Properties, for a place called Sunset Apartments in Macon, Georgia. With a handwritten note on the back, Unit 7B, M. "Who is M?" she whispered. I thought I understood what was happening. I thought I'd figured it out. But then Friday afternoon came, and everything I thought I knew became so much more complicated. Friday, November 8th, 2:37 p.m. Robert Mitchell had been unconscious for 18 hours straight. His breathing was labored, shallow, the death rattle starting to settle in his throat. Catherine was sitting in her usual chair. Michael and Emily had gone to get lunch. That's when the door opened, and a woman walked in, 56 years old, blonde hair, worn jeans and a sweater. She looked exhausted, like she'd been driving for hours. Behind her, 2 adults, a man around 30, a woman around 27, and a toddler in a stroller. The woman looked at Robert in the bed and burst into tears. "Bobby," she said. "Oh my God, Bobby, we came as soon as we heard." Catherine stood up. "Who are you?" The woman turned to her, and I saw the exact moment she realized. "I'm Margaret," she said slowly. "Margaret Mitchell, Robert's wife." The silence that followed was absolute. Catherine just stared. "That's impossible. I'm Robert's wife, Catherine Mitchell. We've been married for 34 years. Margaret went pale. 34 years? Yes. That's not possible. Bobby and I have been married for 32 years. I've been a nurse for 40 years. I've seen families fight over inheritance. I've seen siblings refuse to speak to each other at deathbeds. I've seen children show up only when they hear there's money. But I'd never seen 2 wives. Not like this. Both absolutely certain they were telling the truth. The man with Margaret stepped forward. "I'm David Mitchell," he said, "Robert's son, and this is my sister Jennifer, and my daughter Sophie." Catherine looked at him, then at Jennifer, then at the toddler. His son? Yes. Emily walked in carrying coffee. She froze in the doorway. "Mom, what's going on?" Catherine couldn't speak. Margaret was crying now. "I don't understand," Margaret said. "How can you be his wife? He's been with me, in Macon, for 32 years. We have a house. We have children together. He's been there every week." "Every week?" Catherine interrupted. "What do you mean every week?" "He travels for work, to Atlanta, but he comes home every weekend, to Macon, to me, to our family." Catherine sat down slowly. "He travels for work," she repeated, "to Macon." And suddenly it all clicked into place. Robert Mitchell didn't travel for work. Robert Mitchell was living 2 separate lives, 2 wives, 2 families, 2 complete existences for more than 30 years. The man in the bed, unconscious, dying, oblivious to the chaos unfolding around him, had somehow maintained 2 marriages simultaneously. How many Friday afternoons had he told Catherine he had meetings in Macon? How many Monday mornings had he told Margaret he had meetings in Atlanta? How had he managed birthdays, holidays, anniversaries? How had no one figured it out? Michael returned with Emily's salad. He stopped in the doorway next to his sister. "Who are these people?" he asked. David looked at Michael. 2 men, roughly the same age, both Robert Mitchell's sons, neither knowing the other existed until this moment. "I think we need to talk," I said quietly. "All of you. Maybe in the waiting room?" But Margaret shook her head. "No, I'm not leaving Bobby. I've driven 4 hours to get here. I'm staying." "I'm not leaving either," Catherine said. "I've been here since Sunday." They stared at each other. 2 women who'd loved the same man. 2 women who'd built lives with him. 2 women discovering they'd both been living a lie. Robert's heart monitor beeped steadily. 84 beats per minute, slower than before. He was dying, and he had no idea that both his families had just collided in the same room. I left them there, all 7 of them, and went to find the hospital social worker. This was going to get complicated, because when Robert Mitchell died, there would be legal questions about his estate, about his property, about which marriage was legal, about who had the right to make medical decisions, about everything. But more than that, there were going to be emotional questions that couldn't be answered by lawyers. How do you grieve for someone who lied to you every day for 32 years? How do you mourn a father who had a completely separate family you knew nothing about? How do you process that your entire life was built on deception? I came back 20 minutes later with Patricia, our social worker. Both families were still there. still standing on opposite sides of the bed. The children, Michael, Emily, David, Jennifer, were talking quietly near the window, trying to make sense of it, comparing stories, realizing all the inconsistencies they'd never questioned. Catherine and Margaret stood on opposite sides of Robert's bed, both still holding one of his hands, neither willing to let go. "We need to figure out what's happening here," Patricia said gently, "starting with medical decisions. Who has power of attorney?" "I do," Catherine said. "Robert gave it to me 15 years ago." "He gave it to me too," Margaret said quietly. 10 years ago." Patricia looked at me. This was already a legal nightmare. "We need to see documentation," Patricia said. "Marriage certificates, power of attorney papers, everything." "I have our marriage certificate," Catherine said, "from 1985, Atlanta." "I have ours too," Margaret said, "from 1987, Macon, 1987, 2 years after he married Catherine." Robert Mitchell had married Margaret while still legally married to Catherine, which meant, legally, only one marriage was valid, Catherine's. Margaret's marriage was bigamy, which meant Margaret had no legal standing, no right to make medical decisions, no claim to his estate, nothing. 32 years of her life, 2 children, a granddaughter, all built on a marriage that didn't legally exist. I watched Margaret's face as Patricia explained this to her. The color drained from her skin. "That's not possible," she whispered. "We had a wedding, a marriage license, a life." "If he was already married when he married you," Patricia said carefully, "then your marriage isn't legal. I'm sorry." Margaret looked at Robert, then at Catherine. "You knew," Margaret said suddenly. "You had to know." "I didn't know," Catherine said. "I swear to God I didn't know." "How could you not know? How could you be married to someone for 34 years and not know they had another family?" "How could you not know?" Catherine shot back. "You were married to him for 32 years." They stared at each other, both women realizing the same terrible truth. They'd both been victims, both been deceived, both been living with a man they thought they knew, both been wrong. That evening, after visiting hours ended, both families refused to leave. Hospital policy is 1 visitor overnight in ICU rooms, but how do you choose between 2 wives? I bent the rules, let both women stay, Catherine on one side of the bed, Margaret on the other. The children took turns in the waiting room, sleeping in chairs, waiting. Saturday morning, Robert woke up. For the first time in 2 days, his eyes opened, confused, disoriented. He looked left, saw Catherine. "Catherine?" he whispered. Then he looked right, saw Margaret. His face went white. "Margaret?" And then he saw them both at the same time. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He tried to sit up, started coughing, blood in his mouth. "Robert, lie down," I said, rushing over. "You need to stay calm." "How are they both here?" he gasped. "How?" "Both your families came," Catherine said coldly. "Apparently, we both thought we were your wife." Robert closed his eyes. A single tear ran down his cheek. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Sorry?" Margaret said. "You're sorry?" I didn't mean for what?" Catherine demanded. "For us to find out? Or for doing it in the first place?" Robert's breathing was getting faster, more labored. His heart monitor jumped to 110 beats per minute. "I need both of you to step back," I said firmly. "He's in acute distress." But neither woman moved. "You need to tell us the truth," Catherine said. "Right now, before you die. You owe us that much." Robert opened his eyes, looked at Catherine, then at Margaret. "I loved you both," he whispered. "That's not an answer," Margaret said. "It's the only answer I have." "How?" Catherine asked. "How did you do this? How did you live 2 lives?" Robert was quiet for a long time. Then he started talking. And what he said over the next 30 minutes changed everything I thought I understood about this situation. I met Catherine first, Robert said, his voice barely audible. 1984, we were both at Georgia State. She was beautiful, kind, everything I wanted. Catherine stood rigid, silent. We got married in 1985. I was 29, she was 24. I thought we'd have this perfect life. We did have a perfect life, Catherine said. No, Robert said. We had a life, but I wasn't happy. The words hung in the air. You weren't happy, Catherine repeated flatly. I tried to be. I wanted to be. But something was missing. I don't know what. I don't know why. So you started another family? Michael said from the doorway. He'd come back in. That's your solution? Robert didn't look at his son. I met Margaret in 1986 at a real estate conference in Macon. We started talking, then meeting for coffee. Then you had an affair, Margaret said. Yes, and then you married me, while you were still married to her. Yes. Why? Margaret asked, and I could hear her voice breaking. If you already had a wife, why marry me? Because I loved you too, Robert said. I know that sounds impossible. I know you don't believe me, but I loved you both. Different kinds of love, different parts of me. That's not how love works, Catherine said. I know, but it's what I felt. David stepped forward. So what were we? He asked. Jennifer and me? Just what? Your weekend family? Robert finally looked at his other son. You were my family, real family. I loved you. I was there for your first steps, your first words, your soccer games, your graduation. On the weekends, David interrupted, when you weren't with your other family in Atlanta. Yes. And at Christmas? Jennifer asked quietly. Easter? Thanksgiving? You always had business meetings on holidays. Was that them? Your other family? Robert closed his eyes. Yes, I split holidays. Christmas morning with one family, Christmas evening with the other, Thanksgiving lunch with Catherine, Thanksgiving dinner with Margaret. The room was silent except for the monitor's beeping. I built 2 lives, Robert continued. 2 complete, separate lives. Mitchell Properties gave me the perfect excuse. Travel, meetings. I was in Atlanta Monday through Friday, in Macon on weekends. Both of you believed I was working when I was gone. But how? Michael demanded. How did you keep it secret? Phone calls, mail. What about taxes? I had 2 phones, 2 email addresses. I filed separate tax returns for each household. I told each of you I handled finances independently because I liked keeping work and home separate. Catherine made a sound, half laugh, half sob. I believed you. God help me, I believed every word. I made it work, Robert said. For 32 years, I made it work. 2 houses, 2 mortgages, 2 sets of everything. I built the company specifically so I could support both families without either of you knowing. You built a company on lies, Margaret said. I built a company so I could have both of you, so I could have all my children, so I didn't have to choose. But you did have to choose, Catherine said. You just refused to. Something was still bothering me. Something didn't add up. Mr. Mitchell, I said, how did they not know? Didn't people see you? Colleagues? Friends? Someone had to notice. Robert looked at me. I was careful, obsessively careful. I kept my families in different cities, different social circles, different churches. Catherine's friends and family were in Atlanta. Margaret's were in Macon. I never let the worlds overlap. But your business partner knew, Catherine said suddenly. James knew, didn't he? Robert didn't answer. He did, Catherine continued. That's what he was trying to tell me Thursday. That's why he looked so uncomfortable. James helped you, Margaret said. Didn't he? He helped you maintain the lie. He found out by accident, Robert said. 5 years ago, he saw me with Margaret in Macon. I had to tell him. He didn't approve. But he didn't tell anyone either. Why not? Emily asked. Because I'm his best friend. Because he didn't want to destroy two families. Because... Robert stopped, started coughing again. Blood spattered on his hospital gown. That's enough, I said. He needs to rest. No, Catherine said. There's more. I can feel it. There's something else you're not saying. Robert looked at her with haunted eyes. You're right, he whispered. And then he told them the truth that made everything so much worse. The truth about why he'd built two lives. The truth that had nothing to do with love or happiness or wanting both families. The truth that changed everything. I have another family, Robert said quietly. The room went silent. What? Catherine whispered. In Jacksonville, a woman named Teresa. We've been together for 18 years. We have a 14-year-old son named Christopher. The words seemed to suck all the air from the room. 3 families, Margaret said numbly. You had 3 families. Yes. 3 wives? Yes. 3 sets of children. Yes. Catherine sat down like her legs had stopped working. How many others? She asked. How many other families did you have? Just the 3. Just, Michael said. Just 3. Robert was crying now. I'm sick. I'm dying. And the truth is, I'm sick because of this. The stress, the lying, the constant juggling. The fear of being caught. It destroyed my liver. The doctor said stress and anxiety can cause liver disease. This is my punishment. Don't, Margaret said sharply. Don't you dare make yourself the victim. I'm not. I'm just saying... You're saying you're dying because you had to maintain 3 lies? 3 deceptions? 3 betrayals? Yes. But I didn't believe him. And from the look on Margaret's face, neither did she. You're lying, Margaret said. Even now. Even dying. You're still lying. Robert's face changed. Just for a second. But I saw it. What is it? I asked. What are you not telling them? Robert looked at me, then at his families, all of them, all the children he'd fathered across 3 families, all the women he'd married, all the lives he'd built and maintained and lied about. My liver didn't fail because of stress, he said finally. Then why? Catherine asked. Alcohol. I've been drinking heavily for 20 years, a bottle of whiskey a day. Sometimes more. Alcoholism? Emily said. You were an alcoholic? Yes. We never saw you drink, Michael said, because I hid it. Just like I hid everything else. I drank alone, in hotel rooms, in my car, at the office after everyone left. I needed it to cope with the constant fear, the constant lying. Margaret shook her head slowly. So you destroyed your liver by self-medicating the guilt of having 3 families? Yes. That's not better, Robert. That doesn't make this better. I know. Do they know? Catherine asked. Teresa and Christopher? Do they know about us? No. I called James 3 days ago. Before I went to the hospital, I asked him to keep them away, to not tell them I was dying. Why? Because I thought maybe I could die and you'd never find out about each other. Catherine and Margaret would meet at my funeral. Teresa would think I died on a business trip. You'd all grieve separately. You'd never know. That's why you said sorry, Catherine said. In your sleep. You were sorry because you thought we'd figured it out. Yes. The heart monitor started beeping faster. 120 beats per minute. Robert was getting agitated. I need all of you to leave, I said firmly. He's in acute distress. No, David said. We're not done. I need to ask you something, Jennifer said, stepping forward. All these years, all these lies, did you ever actually love any of us? Or were we all just parts of whatever sick fantasy you were living? Robert looked at his daughter. I loved all of you. I swear I did. How can we believe anything you say? You can't, Robert admitted. I destroyed that. I destroyed any trust or credibility I ever had. The room fell silent again. Just the monitors beeping, the oxygen hissing, the sound of people breathing. 7 people whose entire lives had just been rewritten. Who'd discovered that everything they thought they knew was a lie? Who had to figure out how to process this while watching the man responsible die in front of them? I've been a nurse for 40 years, and I've learned something important about deathbeds. The truth comes out. Always. One way or another. People can lie their whole lives. But when they're dying, when there's no more time left, when the fear of judgment is less than the weight of the secret, the truth has a way of showing itself. I left them there. All of them. 2 legal wives and 1 who thought she was. 5 children who'd just discovered they had siblings they never knew existed. 1 dying man facing the consequences of 32 years of lies. And I went to call the hospital attorney, because this was about to get very, very complicated. Saturday afternoon, the hospital attorney arrived. Linda Chen, 52 years old, 20 years of experience in medical law and estate cases. She gathered everyone in a conference room. Robert was unconscious again, so it was just the families. "Let me understand the situation," Linda said. "Mr. Mitchell has been married to Catherine since 1985, legally. He married Margaret in 1987 while still married to Catherine, which makes that marriage void. And he's been in a relationship with a 3rd woman, Teresa, for 18 years. "That's correct," Catherine said. "Does Teresa know he's hospitalized?" "No. He specifically asked his business partner not to tell her." Linda made notes. "Legally, only Catherine is his wife, which means only Catherine has medical power of attorney. Only Catherine can make end-of-life decisions. And only Catherine and her biological children have inheritance rights." Margaret went pale. "What about David and Jennifer? What about my children? They may be able to make a claim as biological children, but it will be complicated. They'll need to prove paternity, which will require DNA testing." "He's their father," Margaret said. "Of course they're his biological children. I don't doubt that, but legally it has to be established, especially since you and Mr. Mitchell weren't legally married." 32 years, Margaret whispered. 32 years I thought I was his wife. 32 years of marriage that doesn't exist. "I'm very sorry," Linda said gently. "But in terms of his estate, his business, his property, legally, it all belongs to Catherine." "Unless he has a will," Michael said. Linda nodded. "Does anyone know if Mr. Mitchell has a will?" "I don't," Catherine said. "He told me he had one," Margaret said. 5 years ago, he said he'd taken care of everything. "We'll need to locate it. If he has a will, he may have made provisions for all his children. But if there's no will, everything goes to his legal spouse by default." Catherine looked at Margaret. "I don't want this," Catherine said quietly. "I don't want to fight over his money. I don't want any of this." "Unfortunately, you may not have a choice. If Mr. Mitchell dies without a will, Georgia interstate law governs distribution of his estate. As his legal wife, you inherit everything. The business, the properties, all of it." "What about the house in Macon?" David asked. "That's my mother's house, where we grew up." "Is it in your mother's name?" "I don't know." "If it's in Mr. Mitchell's name alone, it's part of his estate, which means Catherine inherits it." Margaret put her face in her hands. 32 years in a house that isn't mine, that I have no legal claim to." "We'll figure it out," Catherine said, but her voice sounded empty, like she couldn't quite believe any of this was real. Linda spent the next hour gathering information: property deeds, bank accounts, business documents. The picture that emerged was staggering. Robert Mitchell had built an empire specifically to support 3 families simultaneously. Mitchell Properties was worth approximately $4 million. He owned the house in Atlanta, a 4-bedroom colonial worth $650,000. Catherine's name was on the deed. He owned the house in Macon, a 3-bedroom ranch worth $380,000. Only Robert's name was on the deed. He owned a condo in Jacksonville, a a 2-bedroom unit worth $280,000. Only Robert's name was on the deed. He had 3 bank accounts, one joint with Catherine, one in his name alone that he used for Margaret's household, one in his name alone that he used for Teresa's household. He had 3 cars, one registered to him and Catherine, one registered to him and Margaret, one registered to him and Teresa. He had 3 life insurance policies, one listing Catherine as beneficiary, one listing Margaret, one listing Teresa. Everything was meticulously separated, carefully compartmentalized, a system designed to sustain 3 separate lives without any of them intersecting. How much did he spend maintaining all this? Michael asked. Linda did some quick calculations. Based on these documents, approximately $18,000 per month, $216,000 per year, for 32 years. Nearly $7 million spent maintaining 3 families, 3 lives, 3 versions of Robert Mitchell. Saturday evening, they found the will. James Patterson brought it. He looked uncomfortable, guilty. He gave this to me 5 years ago, James said. Asked me to keep it safe. I didn't know what was in it until today. I'm sorry. Linda read through it carefully. Her face didn't change. When she finished, she looked up at the families. Mr. Mitchell's will divides his estate equally among all his biological children. All of them? Catherine asked. Yes. Michael, Emily, David, Jennifer, and Christopher each receives 20% of his estate, including the business, the properties, everything. What about the wives? Margaret asked. He leaves Catherine the Atlanta house free and clear. He leaves you the Macon house. And he leaves Teresa the Jacksonville condo. Margaret exhaled slowly. So, I get to keep my house. Yes. That's something, I suppose. What about the life insurance policies? David asked. Those are separate from the will. Each policy pays out to its named beneficiary. Catherine gets one, Margaret gets one, Teresa gets one. Each policy is for $500,000. $1.5 million divided among 3 women he'd lied to for decades. He planned this, Emily said slowly. He knew this might happen. He knew we might all find out, so he made sure we'd all be taken care of. Taken care of, Jennifer repeated bitterly. Is that what this is? Sunday morning, Robert woke up again, barely conscious, breathing shallow. His liver was shutting down completely now, hours left, maybe less. Both families were there. Catherine and Margaret on opposite sides of the bed, the children standing around them, all watching, all waiting. I want to ask you something, Catherine said to Margaret. Margaret looked at her. Did you love him? Really love him? Margaret was quiet for a long time. Yes, she said finally. I loved him. Even now, knowing everything, I still love him. Or I love the man I thought he was. I don't know anymore. I know what you mean. They looked at each other across Robert's dying body. 2 women who'd shared the same man without knowing it. 2 women who'd built their entire lives around someone who was living a lie. 2 women who now had to figure out how to grieve for someone who'd betrayed them so completely. Are you angry? Margaret asked. Catherine thought about it. I don't know what I am. Angry, sad, confused, mostly just empty. Yeah, Margaret said. Empty. That's exactly it. Robert's breathing changed, slower, more labored, the death rattle getting stronger. Should we get Teresa? Emily asked quietly. Everyone looked at each other. He didn't want her here, Michael said. But she's his... Jennifer trailed off. She's his whatever, his partner. She has a right to know he's dying. Catherine looked at Linda. Call her. She should be here. James made the call. Teresa arrived 90 minutes later, 48 years old, dark hair, wearing a McDonald's uniform. She'd come straight from work. Her son Christopher was with her, 14 years old, tall, looked exactly like Robert. Teresa walked into the room and froze, saw all the people, saw Robert in the bed. What's going on? She asked. James said Bobby was sick, but—" She stopped, looked around at everyone. "Why are there so many people here?" "Because," Catherine said gently, "we're all his family." Teresa's face went white. "What?" "I'm Catherine, Robert's wife, since 1985. I'm Margaret, Robert's partner, since 1987. Teresa looked from one to the other, then at all the children. "How many of you are there?" she whispered. "5 children total," Linda said. "Michael and Emily are Catherine's. David and Jennifer are Margaret's. Christopher is yours. He has 4 other children." "Yes. And 2 other—" Teresa couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes," Catherine said. Teresa sat down hard. Christopher stood behind her, looking stunned. "I thought," Teresa said. "He told me he was divorced, that his ex-wife lived in Atlanta, that he had to go back for business, but he'd left that life behind." "He lied to all of us," Margaret said quietly. The room fell silent again. 4 women now. Well, 3 women and 1 widow. 5 children, 1 dying man. All the lies finally exposed, all the secrets finally revealed, all the separate worlds finally colliding. Robert died at 4:47 p.m. on Sunday, November 10th, 2019. All 4 women were there, all 5 children, the attorney, the social worker, me. His last breath came quietly. One moment he was breathing, the next he wasn't. The monitor flatlined, long, steady tone. No one moved, no one spoke. Finally, Catherine reached over and closed his eyes. "Goodbye, Robert," she said softly. The other women echoed her. "Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye." And then they all started crying, all 4 of them, not because they'd lost the man they loved, but because they'd lost the illusion, the life they thought they had, the person they thought he was. The version of reality they'd believed in. That's what they were grieving, the death of the lie. And somehow, watching all 4 of them cry together, I realized something. They weren't enemies. They were all victims of the same deception. They'd all been used, all been lied to, all been living in a carefully constructed fantasy, and now they had to figure out how to live with the truth. The funeral was 3 weeks later. It was complicated. They decided to hold one service. All the families together. It seemed fitting somehow. All the people Robert Mitchell had lied to gathered in one place to say goodbye. Catherine gave a eulogy about the early years, when they were young and in love, and she thought they had their whole future ahead of them. Margaret spoke about being a single mother most of the time, raising 2 kids while their father was away for work, and how she'd made it work because she loved him. Teresa didn't speak. She sat in the back with Christopher, still trying to process everything. Michael, Emily, David, and Jennifer sat together. Half-siblings who'd grown up in separate cities, separate lives, never knowing the others existed. Now trying to figure out how to be a family. After the service, they all went to a restaurant, all of them. 4 women, 5 children, 1 granddaughter. Sitting around a long table, picking at food no one really wanted, trying to make sense of it all. "I've been thinking," David said, "about the business, Mitchell Properties." "What about it?" Michael asked. "We all own 20% each now, the 5 of us. Maybe we should try to run it together?" "Run it together?" Emily said. "Why not? Dad built it. It's worth something, and it's the one thing that connects all of us." They looked at each other. 5 people who'd just met. 5 people who shared DNA and trauma and a complicated legacy. "I'm in," Jennifer said. "Me too," Michael said. "Yeah," Emily said. "Why not?" Christopher, the youngest, looked at his older half-siblings. "Can I be involved, even though I'm only 14? "Of course," David said. "You're part of this family now." Family. That word. What did it even mean anymore? But maybe that was the point. Maybe family wasn't about biology or legal status or who lived under which roof. Maybe it was about who showed up, who stayed, who chose to build something new from the ruins of what came before. The four women watched the children talk, planning, dreaming, making something positive from something so broken. "You know what's funny?" Margaret said, "in a horrible, tragic way." "What?" Catherine asked. "Robert spent 32 years keeping us apart, building walls between his different lives, making sure we'd never meet. And now look at us," Teresa added. Four women who'd shared the same man, sitting at the same table. Not friends exactly, but not enemies either. Something new. Something undefined. "I don't forgive him," Margaret said. "I don't think I ever will." "Me neither," Catherine agreed. "But maybe we can forgive ourselves," Teresa said, "for not seeing it, for believing him, for trusting him." They sat in silence, processing, grieving, healing, or at least trying to. 6 months later, I heard from Catherine. She called to update me. The children had officially taken over Mitchell Properties, all 5 of them. They'd restructured it, renamed it Mitchell Family Enterprises, and were running it together. David handled operations, Michael handled finances, Emily handled marketing, Jennifer handled legal. Christopher, still in school, worked part-time and was learning the business. They were making it work, against all odds. "And the women?" I asked. Catherine laughed. "We have coffee once a month, all 4 of us." "Really? Really? It's strange. We're not friends, but we're not strangers either. We're just connected by this bizarre shared experience." "How are you doing?" I asked. "Really?" She was quiet for a moment. "Some days are hard. Some days I'm angry. Some days I miss him, or I miss who I thought he was. But mostly I'm just trying to move forward. That's all any of us can do." "Yeah," she paused. "Sharon, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think he really loved us? Any of us? I've been a nurse for 40 years. I've seen a lot of death. A lot of family drama. A lot of secrets revealed too late. And I've learned something important. Love isn't just a feeling. It's actions. It's honesty. It's showing up. It's not dividing yourself into pieces and giving each person a fragment. I think," I said carefully, "that Robert Mitchell loved the idea of all of you. He loved having multiple lives, multiple families, multiple versions of himself. But did he love us? I don't know. Maybe in his own broken way he thought he did. But real love requires honesty, truth, showing up as your whole self. He never did that. No, he didn't." Catherine was quiet. "Thank you," she said finally, "for everything you did, for being there, for not judging. It's my job. It's more than that. You gave us space to be angry and sad and confused. You didn't try to make it better or fix it. You just let us feel what we felt. That's all I could do." After we hung up, I sat at the nurse's station for a long time, thinking about Robert Mitchell, about the complexity of human nature, about how someone can cause so much pain while genuinely believing they're doing the right thing, about how easy it is to build lies, and how hard it is to live with truth. I've been a nurse for 40 years. I've seen families destroyed by secrets. I've seen marriages implode at deathbeds. I've seen children discover terrible truths about their parents. But I've also seen something else. I've seen people choose to move forward anyway, to build new relationships from the wreckage of old ones, to create families that aren't defined by blood or legality, but by choice. If you're listening to this story and you're keeping secrets from the people you love, hear me clearly. The truth always comes out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And when it does, the pain isn't just in the secret itself. It's in all the years of lying. All the moments that were built on deception. All the trust that was broken. Robert Mitchell spent 32 years building 3 separate lives, and in the end, all 3 came crashing down in the same hospital room. The lies died with him. But the people he lied to had to keep living, had to figure out how to rebuild, had to decide what family means when the foundation you built your life on turns out to be made of sand. Don't wait until it's too late to tell the truth. Because in 40 years I've learned something important. You can survive the truth, no matter how painful. But you can't survive living a lie forever. Eventually, one way or another, the truth finds a way out. And when it does, you better pray the people you love are strong enough to handle it. Because Robert Mitchell's families were. They survived his death. They survived his lies. They survived the collision of 3 separate worlds. And somehow, impossibly, they built something new. Not perfect, not easy, but real and honest. And that, in the end, is all that matters.